Here's the raw truth you need to swallow. The narcissist never loved you. They were addicted to the high of controlling you. And when you cut contact, they don't fall apart. They get angry. Because you just did the one thing no one is ever allowed to do. You walked away without permission. You think you're free. They don't. They're not done. They'll weaponize silence, fake change, pull the old flame still burns, act, even recruit others into their little game. You think they're forgetting you, but really they're tightening every last screw in your mind. If you're thinking about going back, don't. Watch this entire video to break down every tactic they'll throw at you and how to crush it all with cold, unshakable silence. No one suspects the calm of someone who's made up their mind to disappear. Narcissists believe they're the center of the universe. Everything you do in their inflated mind revolves around them. Then one day you go silent. No warning, no teary goodbye, no victim role. You vanish like you never existed. That's not their worst fear. It's beyond comprehension. They don't grieve. They glitch, shocked, disoriented, like someone just yanked their remote control. In their warped reality, you couldn't possibly pull this off. You're too weak, too predictable, too dependent. And yet, no messages, no replies, no apologies. To them, it's not retreat. It's betrayal. You've taken away the one thing that fed their illusion of power. And in their silence, they're seething. Don't mistake their silence for acceptance. It's a storm held back. They're not used to being ignored. They expect you to come crawling back, out of guilt, loneliness, or unfinished business. In their mind, you're just a puppet with a loose string. But the longer you stay away, the more their panic sets in. That's when rage and fear start to fuse. Narcissists don't want love, they want control. Losing you isn't the crisis, losing their grip is. When you walk away without a sound, you don't just exit the relationship, you tear down the power structure they thought was untouchable. That wounds their diseased ego. It doesn't just hurt, it humiliates. You think they've forgotten you? Hell no. They're watching, calculating, testing to see when you'll break. But once you see the game for what it is, you never step back into that ring. Don't wait for them to change. Don't expect them to understand. Narcissists don't fight to keep you because they care. They fight because they can't stand losing control. And that's why no contact is the one fatal blow they can't recover from. If you feel the positive energy, don't forget to like this video and share a meaningful comment. When you go silent to heal, the narcissist goes silent too, but for a completely opposite reason. You're trying to let go. They're trying to reel you back in. But they don't do it by pleading or chasing. They do it by making you question yourself. To them, silence isn't closure. It's a tool, a trap, a method for planting seeds of doubt. They know exactly how to use that quiet space to trigger questions in your mind with no clear answers. Was I too cruel? Am I the one who's wrong? Why aren't they reacting at all? Maybe they really don't need me anymore? What you don't realize is, that's exactly what they've been waiting for. A master manipulator doesn't act like they miss you right after you leave. They disappear like you never existed. They create the illusion that nothing touched them. And that's how they push you into questioning. Was I really that meaningless to them? Don't be fooled. They're still watching you. Not directly. Through mutual friends, through social media, through some cryptic story. They know where you are, what you're doing, whether you're okay, but they'll never let it show because their ego won't allow them to appear like they care. They want you to believe you're the only one still haunted. If you react, if you send a message just to check in, the game ends. You've just handed them back their status as the center of your universe. You think you're being kind, mature, seeking peace. But in truth, you've just given your weapon back to someone who already used it to wreck you. Their silence isn't about resolution. It's about breaking your will. They don't need you to be in agony. They just need you to be unsure. They want you guilty, off balance, desperate for a clean ending. But remember, closure with a narcissist is never real. It's just the gateway to another cycle of control, regret, and emotional damage. Stoicism doesn't teach you to conquer others, it teaches you to command yourself. In the emotional warfare with a narcissist, your silence isn't surrender. It's a clear declaration: I don't play by your rules anymore. And nothing terrifies them more than that. No one knows your weak spots better than a narcissist. They've studied every little reaction, every time you got angry, broke down, every message you typed and deleted. When you cut off contact, they don't strike back right away. They wait. And while they wait, they're calculating the exact moment your will starts to crack. The narcissist sees your silence as nothing more than a temporary rebellion. They believe you're too hooked on connection, too starved for emotion, too obsessed with closure to last. In their mind, you're not a threat, you're fragile, just pretending to be strong. All they need is patience. You don't respond? No problem. They'll accidentally leave a trail, a short, emotionless text, a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" No romance, no pleading, just enough to trigger the doubt. Maybe they've really changed? Should I reply? Would it be cruel to stay silent forever? This is where most people cave. Not out of longing, but because they can't stand being the bad guy. They've been fed ideas like, silence is rude, everyone deserves to be heard, at least give a civil response. But that's not morality talking. That's fear of judgment. And the narcissist knows it. We don't crave cruelty. We crave a clean ending. But a narcissist will never give you a real one. What they offer isn't closure. It's just a reset of the same game. If you answer, even once, you're cracking open a door you fought like hell to slam shut. Stoicism doesn't tell you to run from emotion. It teaches you to face it without letting it control your actions. Your willpower is the one thing in this world you truly own. If you can't hold on to it in your most vulnerable moments, you'll always be a pawn in someone else's game. They're waiting for you to break. Don't give them the pleasure. One of the narcissist's oldest and most dangerous tricks is coming back with a brand new mask, more mature, more grounded, apologetic, attentive. They're not begging, they're performing. And this time the performance is polished, a completely transformed person. No more manipulation, no more control, just empathy, sincerity, and promises to make things right. You might feel shocked, even touched, because deep down, everyone wants to believe people can change. And part of you still carries guilt, wondering if you were too cold, too harsh for walking away. Maybe they've truly learned. Maybe this time is different. That's when you're dreaming, and they're more calculated than ever. The narcissist doesn't change to love you better. They change so you'll unlock the door. Cue the love bombing. Sweet words, grand promises, perfectly timed gestures. They say everything you once begged to hear. They do everything you once waited in vain for. They become the version of themselves you always wanted, not to keep you but to reclaim control over you. Love was never the goal. Control is. And the moment you believe they've matured, you lower your guard, break your boundaries, and betray your own standards. No more no contact. No more limits. You're back in the cycle, letting emotion overrule reason, letting hope drown out reality. The problem? Every comeback starts like a fairy tale and ends like a nightmare. Because the narcissist can't wear the mask forever. They don't know how to love. They only know how to act. And no one can keep up the act when they're not getting obedience in return. Stoicism teaches us to judge people by patterns, not by apologies or flashy performances. Anyone can act decent for a week. Only the genuinely good can sustain it over years. You want to believe they've changed? Let them change without you in the audience. Don't turn yourself into a reward for a role they're playing. You're not here to try again. You're here to live a life where you no longer have to keep forgiving someone who refuses to grow the hell up. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. It's the best way to support me in creating more valuable content. Closure is the sweetest trap in every breakup. Everyone wants a clean ending, one last conversation, an apology, an explanation, a final handshake to make peace and move on. But with a narcissist, closure is never real. It's a hook, dressed up as the most reasonable excuse you can give yourself. Just one last time. I just want to say goodbye properly. We owe each other a respectful conversation. I don't want to leave with misunderstandings. Sounds mature. Sounds kind. Sounds logical. But don't forget, manipulators are masters of twisting emotions into pretty words. That final meeting isn't about closure. It's designed to unlock the door you fought to shut. They'll cry, they'll pour their heart out, they'll apologize, but laced with subtle blame. That you were cold, that you lacked empathy, that you walked away just as they were trying. They'll rewrite the story, distort the truth, and leave you dazed, unsure what's right or wrong. And once you're disoriented, they'll offer a solution that sounds so reasonable. Why don't we give it one more try? They don't need you to fully believe. They just need hesitation. And that slight hesitation is all it takes to crack the boundaries you've built during no contact. Closure becomes a fracture in your defense wall. And the narcissist doesn't need more than that to sneak back in and re-establish control. Stoicism doesn't teach you to find closure in others. It teaches you to create it within. Closure doesn't come from one last talk. It comes from a clear decision. Even without an apology, even without a clean ending, I choose to walk away for my own peace. The wise don't seek perfect endings from people who never loved them honestly. Because with a narcissist, closure is just a delay, the start of another loop. And if you go back for one last talk, you're not closing the last chapter. You're writing the next disaster with your own hands. Don't think the narcissist is sitting alone, crying and regretting when you leave. They never loved you the way you thought. They loved the role you played, an emotional supply line, a mirror that reflected their importance, a puppet to control and define themselves through. And when you disappear, they don't seek healing, they seek replacement. The new supply isn't a new love. It's a new tool, a new target, a new face to project their broken ego onto. Narcissists can't stand emptiness. They need someone, anyone, to feel powerful, valuable, visible. You once filled that role. Now they need someone else. The appearance of someone new, especially right after you walk away, isn't coincidence. It's calculated. Sometimes it's to spark jealousy. Sometimes it's to prove they don't need you. But beneath it all, it's panic. A fractured ego scrambling to survive. They don't love anyone. They love being loved. Don't fall into the comparison trap. Don't ask, what do they have that I don't? Or how could they replace me so easily? The brutal, simple truth, they swapped you like a dead battery. When the old one stops responding, they grab a new one to keep the game going. The new person might be showered with praise, spoiled with affection, posted all over with grand captions. But remember, so were you. And how did that turn out? Same script, same pattern, same cycle of manipulation. Just new actors. This isn't love. It's emotional consumption. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be jealous of what's beyond your control. It teaches you to look inward, see the truth, and disconnect your emotions from illusions. That new person isn't better than you. They're just the next victim, unaware of what they've stepped into. Your job isn't to compete. Your job is to protect the freedom you fought for with blood and grit. Don't let a recycled game make you forget why you walked off that stage in the first place. A narcissist never fights alone. They know how to manipulate others into fighting for them. When they lose direct control over you, they activate a substitute force, the flying monkeys. Blindly loyal enablers or simply uninformed people willing to deliver their message. And you won't even see it coming until it's too late. Flying monkeys can be mutual friends, family, co-workers, even people who once supported you. They don't know the whole truth. They've only heard a warped, emotional version of the story, that you abandoned someone who was hurting, that you're cold, selfish, unfeeling, unforgiving, and they believe it. Because narcissists are masters at playing the victim. You'll be caught off guard when an old friend messages you, telling you to just talk it out one last time. You'll feel unsettled when a family member posts something vague about forgiveness and second chances. You'll feel judged, watched, accused. Not by the narcissist, but by people you thought were on your side. And that's what cuts deepest. This is how they isolate you. They don't just want you back. They want you to feel like no one understands you. Because when your support system is stripped away, you weaken. When you're forced to constantly explain your decision to others, you start questioning it yourself. And that's when they come back, reach out, And in your emptiness, you just might take the hand. Stoicism teaches you to separate what you control from what you can only observe. You can't control gossip or the minds of those who choose to believe comfortable lies, but you can control your silence, your steadiness, and your refusal to betray what you know is true. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to defend yourself. Those who see clearly will understand. And those who won't, you owe them nothing. When you walk away from a narcissist, you're not just leaving a person, you're breaking free from an entire web of manipulation. And sometimes, standing alone is the clearest proof that you're no longer a puppet in their performance. Modern life tells you to speak up, to explain yourself, to respond to everything. But that's a trap, especially with a narcissist, because every single reaction, whether it's anger, justification, or even just a message that says, "I don't want to talk anymore," is a thread they can pull on. And one thread is all they need to drag you back in. Silence in this case isn't avoidance, it's strategy. A cold, clear statement: you're done playing, you're done performing. You're done defending, persuading, or chasing validation. You don't need to say, "I've changed." You let silence say it for you. When you don't react, the narcissist loses their stage. No one left to provoke, no one to manipulate, bait, or rattle. They may try, provoke you, spin stories, fake their pain, send flying monkeys, or stir drama online. But if you don't move, they fall into the void you once filled. And they hate it, not because they lost you, but because they lost control over you. Don't confuse silence with weakness. On the contrary, it's the deepest form of strength, a strength that only emerges when you've beaten emotional addiction. Because you're not just silent with them, you're silent with the weak part of you that still craves an apology, still wants to hear, "You were right." But with a narcissist, that moment never comes, and you know that. Stoicism doesn't teach you to avoid conflict. It teaches you to choose battles that are worth your soul. You don't need to burn your energy chasing justice from someone who never dealt in truth. You simply step out of the game, and the game collapses on its own. Not the yelling, not the insults, not the clapbacks. Silence is the weapon that breaks them, because it leaves no crack to crawl through, no emotion, no response, no opening to come back. Every time you don't react, you reclaim your inner territory. And that is the final victory, not over them, but over the part of you they used to control. When you walk away from a narcissist, the battle doesn't end on the outside. It begins inside. And if you don't master yourself, you'll drag yourself right back into the fire. Waves of emotion, anger, doubt, shame, loneliness will crash in like the final test. In those moments, the only thing standing between you and collapse isn't your friends. It's not advice, it's the philosophy you choose to live by. For the Stoic, the choice is simple. Control what you can, let go of what you can't. You don't control the narcissist's behavior. You don't control what they say behind your back, how they manipulate others, or who they love, where they go, what they do. But you fully control your thoughts, your reactions, your choices, and your behavior. And that's the foundation of real freedom. Stoicism doesn't demand that you become stone, emotionless, or rigid. It demands that you see things exactly as they are. No sugarcoating, no fantasy. A Stoic doesn't wait for remorse from someone who's never known love. They don't need a pretty ending to convince themselves the pain was worth it. They face reality and find peace in accepting it. You don't have to suppress your emotions. You just have to stop letting them dictate your actions. You can feel angry, miss them, feel empty, and still not text, still not go back, still not seek closure. Because you understand, emotions are clouds, actions are the road. And the Stoic chooses the road, not the clouds. This takes discipline. And discipline, not motivation, is what truly heals you. Without it, you'll repeat the same old actions, hoping for new results. Then comes the disappointment, the cycle, on repeat. And to a Stoic, that's the worst fate, repeating mistakes you already understand. Remember, you don't need to get over them to prove anything. You just need to become someone you deeply respect. That person isn't emotionless. They just don't let emotions destroy their values. When you live by what you believe, no matter how lonely it feels, you're never truly lost. And when you hold your ground in the middle of the storm, you don't just survive, you become untouchable. Leaving a narcissist isn't like a regular breakup. You don't just lose a relationship, you lose parts of yourself. Your trust, your self-worth, your emotional compass, your ability to know what's real. No one walks out of a toxic bond intact. But if you've made it out, you can rebuild. And this time, you rebuild with full awareness that peace is never worth trading for hollow affection. Recovery starts by facing one brutal truth. You once let someone else control your feelings, your thoughts, your actions. Not to beat yourself up, but to realize, next time, no one gets that power again. This is when you rebuild from the inside out, not with a fresh coat of paint, but a new foundation. Don't look for healing in tracking what the narcissist is doing, who they're dating, how happy they seem, because you'll never know what's real or what's just a performance. And here's the truth. They're repeating the same toxic patterns with someone new. Not because you weren't enough, but because they can't be different. Every comparison is bait to pull you back into victim mode. Remember, healing doesn't happen when you're still focused on them. It starts the moment you turn back to yourself. Journal every day, not to whine, but to gain clarity. You need to understand what you feel and why you react the way you do. Every word you write peels back another layer of the self that was shaped by manipulation. Don't fear your weakness. Naming it is the first step to real strength. Train your body, not to look better, but to reclaim ownership of your energy and your physical space. Every drop of sweat pushes out a bit of the emotional poison they left behind. Meditate, move, walk, breathe. Anything that roots you back in the real world, that's your antidote to their illusion. Rebuild your support system, but this time, choose people who don't use guilt or emotional pressure. You don't need many. You need the ones who are clear-headed enough to remind you who you are when you start to forget. And finally, make this vow. Your peace is non-negotiable. You've walked out of hell. Don't go back just because it feels familiar. Healing isn't fast. It isn't easy. It isn't linear. But every day you choose to live with clarity, you become more untouchable than ever. And the next time someone comes close, you won't ask, "Do they love me?" You'll ask, "Will I lose myself again?" A narcissist doesn't destroy you with one punch to the face. They wear you down with repeated stabs, small, constant, until you start questioning your own reality. But if you've made it out, if you're clear enough to see the game for what it is, then you're no longer a victim. You're a survivor. But surviving isn't enough. You have to grow from the scar. No love story is worth more than your inner peace. No one, no matter how close they once felt, has the right to manipulate your values. And no breakup, no matter how unfinished, is worth turning back to the place where you lost yourself. You don't need closure. You don't need revenge. You don't need to explain. You just need to keep moving. Every step, every silent moment, every time you hold your ground, it's a slap to their controlling ego. You don't have to prove a damn thing. The fact that you're still standing, that's the proof. Freedom doesn't come from words. It comes from action. And you already made the right move. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.